Today we will continue looking at slope of a tangent, day 2. In general, the slope of a tangent, as shown below at points A, f at A, and A plus h, f at A plus h, can be of the form m equals f A plus h minus f at A all over A plus h minus A, which when we collect our like terms is just f at A plus h minus f at A all over h. So therefore, in general, our slope of the tangent is equal to the limit as h approaches 0 of f at A plus h minus f at A all over h. So above we can fill this out. The slope of a tangent to the graph at point A, f at A is the limit of h approaching 0 to f at A plus h minus f at A all over h. We will now look at a couple examples. So example 1, determine the slope of the tangent to A f at x equals 3x squared plus 4x at the point 1, 7. Given the point 1, 7, we know that our A is equal to 1, and our f at A, therefore, is equal to 7. You could also show this by subbing in 1 for your x value in your equation. So therefore, we want to find what A plus h will be, which is 1 plus h, since our A value is 1. Remember, given the point 1, 7. We can then find the value of f at 1 plus h by subbing it into our equation. So we will just sub in for each of the x values 1 plus h squared plus 4 times 1 plus h. We're going to expand, and then we will collect our like terms. So what we have is 3 times 1 plus 2h plus h squared plus 4 plus 4h. Then when we expand, simplify, we get 3h squared plus 10h plus 7. So as shown above, when we had our general form to find our slope of our tangent, recall that m is equal to the limit h approaches 0 of f at A plus h minus f at A all over h. So we can sub in each of these values now. Remember, we're always looking at the limit as h approaches 0 when we're talking about the slope of a tangent. So when we sub these values in, we have 3h squared plus 10h plus 7 minus 7, because our f at A value, all over h. When we collect our like terms, we're left with a limit of h approaches 0 of 3h squared plus 10h all over h. Our next step we can do is factor out an h from our numerator, and we're left with 3h plus 10. all over h. These h values are now going to cancel each other out, and then we can continue looking at the limit as h approaches 0 of 3h plus 10. And when we look at the limit of h approaching 0, if we sub that 0 in for our h value, we're just going to be left with 10. So therefore, the slope of the tangent is 10. We will now continue looking at b to find our slope of our tangent of f at x equals the square root of x when x is equal to 4. Again, remember that our general form, our general equation of finding our slope of our tangent is the limit of h approaches 0 of f at a plus h minus f at a all over h. We know, since it's given, that our x value is 4, so that's our a value. When we sub that value into our equation, so we sub in 4, and for our x, we have the square root of 4, which we all know is 2. So we have our point there of 4, 2. Now, for a plus h, we know this will be equal to 4 plus h. When we find our f at 4 plus h by subbing in for our x value, we're left with 4 plus h all underneath the square root sign. We can now sub those values into our equation here to find our slope of the tangent. So we have the square root of 4 plus h minus 2 all over h. Notice here we have an h value on the bottom, and we also have our square root of 4 plus h minus 2 in our numerator position. There's nothing that I can actually factor out, so I'm able to cancel our h in the denominator position. So therefore, what we need to do is we need to rationalize. In this case, we're going to rationalize the numerator so that we don't have our h in the denominator position to be 0, because we know that anything divided by 0 doesn't exist. So we're going to rationalize this. Remember, when we're rationalizing, we're going to multiply by the opposite of what is given. So instead of multiplying by the square root of 4 plus h minus 2, we're going to multiply by the square root of 4 plus h plus 2. And whatever you do to the top, you must do to the bottom. That's how we rationalize, right? So this is equal to the limit of h approaches 0. Now, when we go ahead and expand this, we are given 4 plus h minus 4 all over h times 4 plus h plus 2. And that should be in a square bracket there because h is applied to both things. So we're going to collect our like terms in our numerator position. So we're just going to be left with h in the numerator and left with h times the square root of 4 plus h plus 2 in the denominator. So notice again here, we can cancel out our h's. And after that, we are given the limit of h approaches 0 of 1 over the square root of 4 plus h plus 2. Now, when we solve this by subbing in 0, we would be left with 1 over the square root of 4 plus 2. We all know the square root of 4 is just 2, and 2 plus 2 is 4, so therefore we're left with the slope of the tangent being 1/4. Write our therefore statement, so therefore the slope of the tangent is 1/4. And our last part of this question, this example here, we want to calculate the equation of the tangent and provide a sketch for b. So we know from part B that our slope is 1/4, and we know a point which is 4, 2. So using those, we can sub it into our y equals mx plus b, our equation of a line. So sub in for our known values, so 2 equals 1/4 times 4 plus b. We all know that 1/4 times 4 is just going to give us 1, so we have 2 minus 1 is equal to b, so therefore b is just equal to 1. So therefore our equation is y equals 1/4 x plus 1. Now what we're going to do beside here is we need to sketch our graph. So our graph here, if we're looking at our values just in the positive, if our value is going to be 0, we would have our x being 0, y would therefore be equal to, if we sub in for 0 there into our equation, we know it would just be equal to 1. Now what about when we are trying to look at when our x value is 1? When x is equal to 1, if we sub that into there, we have 1 times 1/4, which is 1/4 plus 1. So it's 1 1/4. If we look at 2, we sub in for our x, so we're going to have 1/2 plus 1, so 1 1/2. If we look at, let's look at 4. If we look at 4, 4 times 1/4 is 1, 1 plus 1 is 2. And we could go further, but this is enough points for our sketch. And that is our lesson for today.